Well, good Wednesday evening, folks. It is August the 12th, and I'm so glad that you tuned in tonight for our Bible study as we continue to take a look at the book of Proverbs. If you happen to be joining us for the first time, thank you so much for taking some of your time to join us. I hope that you're going to be encouraged and edified, and I hope that you'll want to come back anytime that you possibly can. Well, if you've got your Old Testaments, and I really hope that you do, I hope you'll want to grab those Bibles, and I hope that you'll want to personally follow along, lay your eyeballs on the text, maybe jot down a few notes. That's always helpful. And so if you've got those Bibles, open them to Proverbs chapter 3. We finished up chapter 2 Sunday. We're trying to take a chapter in each study, and we'll see how that works, but I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to do that 90% of the time. Those other 10% of the times we'll be able to accelerate a little bit. The next class we'll make up, and I think we're really going to stay on track for about one chapter a session. Okay, with that in mind, let's take a look. Jump right into the text, Proverbs chapter 3. Let's look at the first couple of verses. My son, do not forget my teaching, for length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Now, this idea we're going to see continually reinforced in Proverbs. For instance, if you'll just hold your place there and turn over to chapter 9, this idea of long days, extended life. Look at verse 11 of chapter 9. For by me your days will be multiplied and years of life will be added to you. You're going to continually see that. Now, I've already told you this, but I just want to emphasize it again, especially maybe if you're joining us for the first time. These are Proverbs, and if you don't remember that, they can really be troubling to you. There are a lot of people who have agonized over some of their circumstances of life because they've tried so hard, and they've tried to do the right thing, and they've tried to open themselves to the wisdom of God, and yet things didn't work out like they wanted them to. And they're agonizing about what they did wrong. What I did I leave undotted, and what T did I leave uncrossed? And the answer is, maybe none of those I's were undotted and maybe none of those T's were uncrossed. These are Proverbs. They are generally true, but they are not ironclad guarantees. And as I've said before, all of these things, all of these moments like this at the beginning of chapter 3 that says, if you won't forget my teaching, that is the teaching of God, if you won't forget godly wisdom, if you will embrace, remember, make it a regular part, a consistent part of who you are applying God's instructions of life to yourself. If you don't forget those, for length of days and years of life and peace will add to you. It's not guaranteeing that you will not suffer an untimely death. That's not the point. And if you try to take it as that, you're really missing the nature of a proverb. Again, these things are generally true. The point is, the way that God has designed life, the way He's wired life, is if you will follow His instructions, if you'll avoid those things He says avoid, if you'll do those things that He says do, there is a far greater likelihood that you will live a long and peaceful life. But following the wisdom of God does not insulate you from some of the unexpected tragedies of life. Okay, so don't forget my teaching. Let your heart keep my commandments. I don't know, I may have said this already, but if I haven't, let me say it. I'm pretty sure I said it already, but that's okay. A reminder is perfectly fine in this situation. Proverbs is one of those books that you should be reading constantly. The way it's designed with 31 chapters is just perfect for monthly reading. It doesn't take long to read a chapter. A couple of minutes. If that's not a part of your regular Bible reading, the book of Proverbs, give it a try. Try it for 1 month, okay? Read one chapter a day. Now read it carefully. Reflect on it. Some marginal notes that you'll add to your Bible as we go through this study will help you even as you're reading, as you come to something, and it'll help remind you of what's being said there. If you'll do that every day, it'll be a blessing to your life. That's what he's saying here. Don't forget the teachings. Let your heart keep my commandments, God's commandments, and it's going to change your life. Now, let's take a look at verse 3. Do not let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Now, when he says, don't let kindness and truth leave you, he's not speaking of fidelity to the covenant. That's not what he's talking about. When we think about, oftentimes we think about truth and fidelity. We're thinking about keeping, the Lord's commands, the covenant relationship that we have with God, that he's revealed it in his written word, and we're going to follow that. That's really not the emphasis here in verse 3 of chapter 3 when he says, don't let kindness and truth leave you. He's really speaking here about inner integrity that manifests itself in all interactions. Interactions with God, certainly, but interactions with people as well. Now, if you want to have a far greater likelihood of having a long, peaceful, fruitful life, develop an inner integrity in everything that you do that characterizes every relationship that you have. Don't let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Now, this idea of writing them on the tablet of your heart, that indicates real character development, not just behavior change. Listen, you can will yourself to behave in certain ways, but you're going against your inner character. People can fake things, in other words. You can fake things, I can fake things. And this idea of write them on the tablet of your heart, what that's emphasizing is develop these so that they become a part of your character. That when you're kind to people, you're not faking it. That's really who you are. You're kind because it's who you are. And so it doesn't matter who you're interacting with, you're always going to be kind because it's who you are. You're not just going to be kind because this circumstance might present a situation where kindness will be, advantageous to you, so you're kind. No. You're always kind because it's a part of your character. Write them on the tablet of your heart so you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and man. I was watching a movie the other night. It kind of, and I don't even remember how this all fits together, but the movie of course had Tom Hanks in it, and of course he's top of the A-list for me. And there was something, it wasn't in that movie obviously, but it led to something else that I heard that I was really interested in, and it really struck me when he was giving his son some suggestions for how to succeed in the acting business. He said, know your lines and be kind. And I thought, wow, that is so simple and so profound. Dad, I want to follow your footsteps into the acting world. What would you recommend? And you expect something really profound. And this is really profound, but sometimes we miss the profundity of something because it's so simple. But he said, know your lines. When you come to the set, know your lines and be kind. Well, that's biblical. That actually is biblical wisdom. He starts out, if you want long life and peace to and good days, don't let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablets of your heart. Let kindness and truth, integrity in your dealings with each other, and with God, let that become a part of your character so that you'll find favor, verse 4, and good repute in the sight of God and man. Okay, that's lesson 1. Don't forget that. Now let's look at verse 5. Now, true piety, true goodness, if you want to be a truly good person, he's going to say here, beginning in verse 5, going through verse 12, that it manifests itself in 3 ways. And so here's a test for you to see if you have if you're a person of true piety, true goodness. Let's look at it. Verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your body and a refreshment to your bones. Okay, verses 5 through 8. Here is one of the ways that true piety is manifested. Intellectual humility. Intellectual humility. Don't think that you know everything. Do not lean on your own understanding. He's talking about here, obviously, more in line with moral standards. Don't lean on your own understanding of how to live life. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, His standards. And He's going to make your path straight. That statement there in verse 6, He's going to make your path straight. In other words, you're going to have clear direction. You're going to have clear purpose in life if you recognize your limitations to know right and wrong. You totally allow God to dictate right and wrong. Do not be wise in your own eyes. No pride. Get rid of the pride. By the way, you're going to find that statement 9 times in the book of Proverbs. Fear the Lord, turn away from evil. You trust Him. Intellectual humility. Whatever He says is right, and whatever He says is true. And if the research paper from the Harvard PhD says something different, you believe that God is right and the Harvard PhD is wrong. Intellectual humility. God is always right, and He's going to make your paths clear, and He's going to make your direction clear, your purpose clear. So intellectual humility is the first sign of genuine piety. And notice what he says here in verse 8, by the way. It will be healing to your body and a refreshment to your bones. Listen, if you will rely on God, if you say, God, you know everything, and I completely trust you. I am so limited in my understanding. Things that look right may not be right. Things that feel right may not be right. But everything that comes from your mouth is right. And I'm going to surrender to that, and I'm going to trust you. If you'll do that, your whole person is going to be invigorated. That's the idea behind verse 8. It'll be a healing to your body and a refreshment to your bones. The idea here is that he's saying is that, even your health naturally is going to proceed. Good health is going to proceed from a peaceful, well-ordered life that submits to God. But you know what? We see those studies all the time. They're published about people who have a real sensitivity and God consciousness, and they're spiritually sensitive, and they seek to live a life that honors God. Research even shows that there is health benefits to that. So this doesn't surprise us at all. A well-ordered life that submits to God is going to invigorate the whole person. It's going to be advantageous to you. Now, let's look at the second sign of real piety. How does real piety manifest itself? It manifests itself by totally relying on God, number 1. Number 2, look at verse 9. Honor the Lord from your wealth and from the first of all your produce. If we had time, we could go to Deuteronomy chapter 26. verse 2, verse 10, we could see how the people of Israel were always exhorted, commanded to honor God from their first fruits. And he says, honor God from your wealth, from the first of all your produce. So piety, genuine piety, does not only manifest itself in total submission to God, but also it manifests itself in submitting our material blessings to God. Remember, we've talked about that recently on Sunday morning. And we talk about, Matthew chapter 6, beginning in verse 19 and going down through about verse 25, that you can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and wealth. Don't lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Where your heart is, where your treasure is, there your heart's going to be. Well, we see that same principle here. And so true piety is reflected in submitting even our material wealth to God. Now look what he says next in verse 10. After he says this, that we honor God from our wealth, so your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. Now, if that sounds like the prosperity gospel, if you serve God, all your blessings will, prosperity will overflow. Your vats will overflow. Like it says here, your vats will overflow with new wine. Well, a lot of people will teach that and they'll point to this and they will use this to imply or even state that this shows that God will bless you to be materially wealthy. The more you submit, the wealthier you'll be. That's simply not the case. That's not the promise here. That's not only doesn't fit the context here, but it doesn't fit the context of the entire Bible. God never promises, be faithful to me and I will make you rich in this life. We know that there were plenty who had everything taken from them. You can just go to Hebrews chapter 10 and check that out for yourself. So what's he talking about here? Well, this doesn't refer to luxuries. This refers to necessities. This is basically saying what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. All the necessities of life, God will make sure that you have what you need to live. Look at this. Your barns will be filled with plenty. Your vats will overflow with new wine. The barns will be filled with plenty is the picture of grain from which bread was made. Vats, of course, the new wine. These were the staples of life in ancient times. They weren't the luxuries of life. Bread and wine were the daily necessities of life. And so again, what he's saying here is that true piety will be reflected in partially, or one of the things, honoring God with our wealth, our material possessions. And God will always make sure that His people have what they need to survive. Then verse 11, my son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord or loathe His reproof, for whom the Lord loves, He reproves, even as a father corrects the son in whom He delights. A third mark of piety. Okay, the first mark was that we have intellectual humility. We're always going to totally rely on God, submit completely to Him. Second thing, we're going to submit our material wealth to Him. And the third thing, how true piety manifests itself, is we patiently accept divine discipline. This passage here is actually cited in the book of Hebrews chapter 12, verse 5 and 6. And it's a reminder that discipline is so important to help us reach our potential, just like it's really important to help anyone reach their potential. And the idea of discipline here really is all about, again, training and teaching so that a person can excel in life. It's not primarily about punishment for wrongdoing. Punishment for wrongdoing is a part of the process of discipline, but the whole discipline process is about teaching and it's about training. Like military training, like military discipline. It is designed to help a soldier, an airman, a sailor, a Marine It's designed to help them reach their fullest potential so that they can succeed. As people look at the hardened nature of military training, especially, of course, basic training and all, it looks like it's just brutal without purpose. But no, it has purpose. And that purpose is to transform this person so that they can get all of their potential out of that person. So that's true piety. Those are the signs of true piety, how true piety manifests itself. Let's continue on with verse 13 now. What we have in verses 13 through 20 is another wisdom poem. This is actually the second of 5 wisdom poems that you'll find in the first 9 chapters of the book of Proverbs. Let's read a few verses. How blessed is the man who finds wisdom. Now remember, we've been talking about that. We looked at chapter 1 and verse 20 where wisdom, is standing in the streets and she's yelling. She wants to bless people. She wants to give herself to people. It's not hidden. We saw it in chapter 2 and verse 3. If you cry with discernment, if you seek it like silver, like you're hunting treasure, you're going to get it. If you want it, you'll get it. How blessed is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding, for her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her gain is better than fine gold. That's an incredible statement. We know the value of precious metals. We know the value of jewels and treasure. And what he's reminding us here is that wisdom is so valuable, the yield that we get. When I talk about yield, think of it in terms of an investment of a yield. The yield, the return we get when from wisdom is better than money, because the return that we get never fails to pay interest. You will never fail to receive back value from investing in wisdom. You invest in, the stock market, you might lose everything. You invest in, some new upstart company or some, well-established company. They may go bankrupt and you lose everything, or the stock may just fall and you bought it high and it never gets back up to what it was. That's just the nature of investing in money. But wisdom, it'll always give a great return. She's more precious, look at verse 15, than jewels. Nothing you desire compares to her. That's a great statement. That's an important statement. Nothing is more desirable than wisdom. Nothing can compare to it. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. There's the idea again of to submit to wisdom, and it's going to bless your life. You're more likely to have a long, fruitful, peaceful life. The picture here, by the way, look at this. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. The idea here is the picture of wisdom, Lady Wisdom, holding bounty in both hands. And the idea here is, again, that wisdom gives gifts to those who embrace her. She is the bearer of gifts. All of her followers, true followers, are going to be blessed. Verse 17, her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. Now again, these are proverbs. Understand, a proverb is a proverb. It doesn't mean if you're a wise person, you're never going to have any trouble in life. All her paths are peace, her ways are pleasant. It doesn't mean that. There will still be trials and there will still be tribulations of life. But he's simply saying that wisdom can make life more joyful and more wholesome and more peaceful. A life that's lived with wisdom than a life without wisdom. She is the tree of life, verse 18 says, to those who take hold of her. In other words, when we think of the tree of life, of course, we think of the Garden of Eden, and it was the tree of life that gave life. And the idea here is the words of wisdom hold the promise of escaping from the curse of death, and they do. If we submit ourselves to God, He'll lead us to a place, His Son, in which we can escape the curse of death. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. And happy are all who hold her fast. You hold on to wisdom and you don't let go. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth, verse 19. By understanding He established the heavens. By His knowledge the deeps were broken up and the skies drip with dew. My son, let them not vanish from your sight. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, so they will be life to your soul and adornment to your neck. Now, what's he talking about in verse 19? The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding He established the heaven. By His knowledge the depths were broken up. He's been exhorting us to take hold of wisdom and hold on to wisdom and don't let go of wisdom. And what he's saying in these verses is, look, if you abandon wisdom, if you don't hold on tight, if you let it go, then you are running against the very structure by which the world was made. By the very thing that God used to create the world, if you reject it, if you don't hold on to it, you are rejecting that structure. Verse 20, knowledge His depths were broken up. Of course, that's the flood, an image of a flood image there, and the skies drip with dew. The world is both a nurturing place, dripping with dew, and it is both a dangerous place, the imagery of flood. And so it's a reminder that wisdom is essential for survival. It can be both dangerous and it can be both nurturing, and wisdom's going to help us to navigate through that kind of world. Verses 21 through 25 is really the fourth lecture to his son. My son, let them not vanish from your sight. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, so they will be a life to your soul, an adornment to your neck. Now what these verses are going to do through verse 25 is instruct him regarding his relationship to others. And this is the essence of the section, verse 22. Wisdom is going to preserve your life. And again, we keep talking about that. You want your kids to be safe. I did. I still do. You want them to be secure. You want them to prosper. Well, the primary benefit that wisdom offers here is personal security from freedom. Personal security and freedom from anxiety. That's what wisdom offers. And look at verse 23. Then you will walk in your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. Again, this is a general promise. It's not a guarantee that the wise will never face an occasion to stumble and hardship. It doesn't mean that. But it means compared to the unwise, the wise will experience tranquility. If you live God's way, if you embrace what He has built into life, that He's disclosing to us here, and you hold fast to it, then you're going to, generally speaking, experience tranquility, far more tranquility than those who reject the way of wisdom. Look at verse 25. Do not be afraid of sudden fear, nor the onslaught of the wicked when it comes. Again, that's, of course, part of that section there, as like I said, through verse 25, that emphasizes the benefits, again, of wisdom in terms of freedom from anxiety and security. Look, don't go, if you heed wisdom, don't go where you shouldn't go. Don't do things you shouldn't do. You don't have to be afraid of a lot of things that other people are afraid of. Real quickly, we got to kind of step on it here through verse 26. This is the climax of the section. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. In other words, God will be beside the follower of wisdom. He is going to be there. Look, common sense is great in life. And personal competence is great in life. But those things can be exhausted if God's protection is missing. We want God there. And God promises to be beside the follower of wisdom. It's great. Now look at verse 27. Let's read verses 27 through 35, the last few verses of this chapter, make a few observations, and then we'll close for the day. Do not withhold good from those whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it when you have it with you. Do not devise harm against your neighbor while he lives securely beside you. Do not contend with a man without cause, if he has done you no harm. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. Okay, let's make a quick comment or two about these. Now, what he's doing here, he's calling us to a life of goodwill and helpfulness. Again, you want a generally peaceful life, a life of tranquility, a life without fear, a long life, a healthy life, a prosperous life, not in terms of luxuries. I'm not preaching the prosperity gospel here, but a good life. Then you need to embrace this, and that is you live a life that is committed to the goodwill of others, and you want to be a help to others. Don't withhold good from those whom it is due. Maybe here he has in mind laborers who have earned their pay, talking to those who have employees. You're going to live up to your responsibilities. You're going to treat them the way you want to be treated. In other words, the whole context here is about being just, being right, and being fair, and practicing fairness with your neighbor. That's the idea here. Do not withhold, or verse 28, do not say to your neighbor. Your neighbor, by the way, is anyone in your sphere of influence. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back tomorrow. I'll give it to you when you have it with you. Again, the idea here is you want to be a person that is fair and just and right. That's what you should want to characterize you. Don't devise harm against your neighbor. No unprovoked schemes like Jezebel and Naboth in 1 Kings chapter 21. You're not devising, you're not just interested in yourself and you're indifferent about those around you, those in your sphere of influence. You want to be just and right and fair. Do not contend with a man, verse 30, without cause, if he has done no harm to you. This is, no frivolous litigation. Man, I'm telling you, this speaks to our world where so many attorneys are just, and others are salivating, looking for a lawsuit to where that they can try to gain something at someone else's expense. No frivolous litigation. This is saying, if you want to be blessed in life, don't use the legal system in malicious ways. Don't abuse what it's designed to do. Do not envy a man of violence, verse 31. Now, why in the world would anybody envy a man of violence? Well, that's easy, because they can prosper. Bad people can prosper. But he says, no, don't fall for that. Don't look at a bad person who's prospering and go, man, it's tempting to go down the same road he's gone. No. Don't go down that road. Don't choose any of his ways, at the end of verse 31. Verse 32, for the devious are an abomination to the Lord, but he is intimate with the upright. The benefits of wisdom are not just impersonal. In a very real sense, the wise, those who embrace wisdom, partake of God's glory. They share in an intimate personal relationship with Him. Don't envy the person who is unprincipled, who seems to be prospering. Instead, understand that person does not have a relationship with God. And that is what is of greatest value. God is intimate with the upright. The curse of the Lord, verse 33, is on the house of the wicked, but He blesses the dwelling of the righteous. Though He scoffs at the scoffers, yet He gives grace to the afflicted. The wise will inherit honor, but fools display dishonor. And so again, the benefits of wisdom are not just impersonal, health, the basic necessities of life, but the benefits of wisdom are a deep, intimate, personal relationship with God. Wow, the returns of wisdom are better than the returns of any monetary investment you can make. they always return interest. They never lose their value. Hold on to it. Embrace it. And you will truly be glad and at peace and blessed. All right, thanks for joining me today, or tonight rather, for another period of Bible study in the Proverbs. And next time we come together, which will be Sunday morning, we're going to take a look at chapter 4. I hope that you'll continue to tune in. Until then, take care and God bless.